I was still rinsing the breakfast bowls when I heard the front door creak. It was barely past 8, and the kids were in the living room, laughing over cartoons and crushed cereal. Her footsteps were soft, hesitant, but purposeful. I turned off the faucet, drying my hands on the same towel I used for everything, and stepped out of the kitchen. She stood by the door with a small suitcase. Her makeup was done. Hair brushed, not a trace of tiredness, like she hadn't just spent the night breastfeeding twins or calming our youngest after another night terror. "I'm leaving," she said. Just that, 2 words, cold, flat, final. I stared at her, waiting for the punchline, the breakdown, the explanation, but it never came. "I'm not meant to be a mother," she added, and before I could say a word, she pulled the door open. The light from outside hit her face just right. She looked free, like she was escaping a burning house. She didn't even look back. Not at me. Not at the babies. Not at the chaos she was walking out of. The silence after that door clicked shut was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. The first night was pure survival. I barely slept. Every time one of the twins whimpered, I jolted awake in panic. I changed diapers in the dark, bottle-fed with one hand while holding back my own tears with the other. The older kids didn't cry, not out loud, but their silence was heavier than sobs. I caught my daughter staring at the door long after bedtime, waiting. My middle boy asked if Mom had gone to buy ice cream. I lied. I said yes, because I couldn't crush them with the truth. Not yet. I didn't know how to cook properly. I didn't know which vitamins they needed or how to braid hair or unclog a sink, but I learned. Fast. I burned rice, spilled formula, missed school meetings. I lost my job 2 weeks later. The manager was sympathetic, but business is business. 5 kids, 1 broken man, 0 income. I remember sitting in the pantry one night, just me and the sound of the washing machine, and whispering to myself, "You don't get to fall apart. They're watching." And they were. Every moment, every crack, every breath I took not to collapse. We moved into a smaller apartment after I sold the car. It was the only way to stretch what little I had left. Every dollar went to diapers, formula, cereal, hand-me-downs from thrift stores. I started picking up part-time gigs, cleaning offices at night, unloading boxes at dawn. One neighbor whispered I was irresponsible for making so many kids without a plan. Another called social services on me. Said 5 kids with a single dad was suspicious. I got visits, interviews, inspections. They poked into our fridge, our bedrooms, our closets. But you know what hurt most? The pity in their eyes, like I was a walking tragedy. No one asked how I was. They just stared, judged. That's the guy whose wife left. That's the guy with all the kids. They didn't know I was learning how to make ponytails, how to cut tiny sandwiches into hearts, how to do voices during bedtime stories just to see one smile before sleep. I was breaking in silence, but every small hug from my kids patched me up. They didn't need perfect, they needed present. And I swore I'd be there, no matter what it took. It was during a school parent-teacher conference that something shifted in me. I sat alone, surrounded by married couples, all dressed neat and rested, while I wore a borrowed button-up shirt and shoes with glued soles. The teacher smiled politely. "Your daughter is brilliant," she said, "but she hesitates to speak in class. She says she doesn't want to bother anyone." That hit me, like a punch in the ribs, because I knew exactly where she learned that. From watching me, always quiet, always apologizing, always trying not to take up space. I walked home with that sentence echoing in my head. That night, while the kids slept, I grabbed an old notebook and a pen from the junk drawer, and I wrote. I didn't plan it, I just let it pour out, page after page. I wrote about our mornings, the sticky floors, the bedtime fears, the exhaustion, the tiny victories no one saw. I wrote about her leaving, about the silence, about how it didn't kill me. That was the night I found my voice again. Quiet, shaky, but mine, and I didn't stop. I started writing every night, not for anyone, just to survive. Each page felt like exhaling after holding my breath all day. I wrote about spilled milk, late buses, missing shoes, sick days, birthday cakes made from scratch because bakery ones were too expensive, the pain, the joy, the mess, but mostly the truth. I never called her by name. I never cursed her. I just told the story as it was, through the eyes of a man rebuilding himself brick by brick. Eventually, I joined an online forum for single parents. One day, someone read a paragraph I posted and asked, "Do you write for a living?" I laughed out loud. Me, a writer? I was just a janitor with insomnia. But she insisted, "Your words feel like home." That night, I created a blog. I didn't use my real name. I was too ashamed. I titled it The Quiet Father. Within weeks, strangers were commenting, sharing, saying thank you. It was the first time in years I felt seen, not as the man left behind, but as someone with something to give. If this story resonates with you, please hit like and subscribe. It helps more people discover these true stories of silent power. The blog grew slowly at first. A handful of single moms, a few widowed dads, and people I'd never met who just needed to read something real. I started waking up early, before the kids stirred, just to write. Sometimes I wrote about the hard days, when I felt like I was drowning in laundry, school forms, and unanswered questions like, "Why did she leave us, Dad?" Other times, I wrote about the little moments, my daughter learning to ride a bike, my son asking me to braid his sister's hair, just like Mommy used to, and the first time I heard all 5 kids laugh at once. I never asked for donations, never sold anything, but people started offering. Your story got me through my divorce. I read your blog every night after my chemo sessions. You make me feel less alone. That last one, it stayed with me, because for the longest time, I had felt like the loneliest person in every room. But these strangers, these readers, they built me back, word by word, comment by comment. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was slowly becoming someone new. Not the man she left, but the man who stayed. It was a rainy Tuesday when I got the email. At first, I thought it was spam. A literary agent had found my blog. She wrote, "Your voice is raw, quiet, and unforgettable. Have you ever thought about turning your journey into a book?" My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I wanted to say no. I'm just a janitor, a part-time delivery guy, a tired dad who writes to survive. But something inside me whispered, "Say yes." A week later, we were on a video call. She asked about the kids and the blog, the stories I hadn't published yet. I showed her my worn-out notebooks, the ones with pages bent from cereal stains and tears. She didn't flinch. She said, "This is exactly what people need." I signed the contract with trembling hands while the twins played with Legos at my feet. When the advance check came, I didn't buy a car or clothes. I fixed the plumbing, bought proper beds, enrolled my daughter in art classes. For the first time in years, I exhaled. My story, the story of a father who was never supposed to make it, was about to be printed, bound, and placed on shelves. But I had no idea who would walk into that bookstore on launch day. The bookstore was packed beyond what I imagined. People I didn't know came up to hug me. Some cried, others brought printed blog posts with underlined paragraphs. I stood there behind a modest table, signing copies of The Quiet Father, when I saw her. She was at the back, near the window. Her hair was shorter now, darker, styled. She wore a beige coat that looked expensive, and sunglasses, though we were indoors. For a second, I thought I was imagining it. But then she took them off, and our eyes met. My hand froze mid-signature. I hadn't seen that face in 10 years. 10 long years of scraped knees, report cards, missed birthdays, all without a single call from her. And there she was, as if nothing had happened. She gave me a half smile, hesitant, as if unsure if she'd be welcome. My stomach clenched. I looked down at the book I'd just signed. To Sarah, your strength lives on in your words. I handed it off and stood up slowly. The crowd faded. The noise dulled. All I could hear was her heels clicking on the tile as she stepped closer. The woman who had vanished without a goodbye was now asking for something I hadn't expected. She didn't say, hello. She didn't ask how the kids were. She just picked up a copy of the book from the display and held it like it was fragile glass. I've been reading the blog, she finally said. Her voice was softer than I remembered. Or maybe I'd just grown harder. Every post, every page, I didn't think you'd survive without me. I felt the weight of her words trying to land somewhere inside me. But they didn't. I was too far gone, too full of every scraped knee I'd bandaged alone, every fever I'd nursed through the night, every lullaby I'd sung with a voice cracking from exhaustion. She looked around, uneasy, then added, "You did more than survive. You built something." I didn't answer. I didn't trust my voice. She lowered her eyes. "I came today because I wanted to see if there was a version of you that would forgive me." And there it was. The question beneath her visit. Not about the kids, not about the years. About her, her guilt, her need for peace. But forgiveness isn't something you can ask for in a bookstore line, especially when you were never there when it mattered. I looked at her and saw a stranger wearing the face of someone I used to love. 10 years had carved different stories into both of us. Mine were in my hands, calloused from work, ink-stained from pages written in the dark. Hers were hidden behind designer clothes and manicured silence. "You want forgiveness?" I asked. Not harshly, just tired. She nodded, her chin trembling. "I don't hate you," I said, "but I don't owe you closure either." Her eyes welled up, and for a moment, I saw the flicker of the woman I once knew, back when we were two dreamers trying to build a life. But those dreams were mine now, and they no longer included her. "The kids?" she asked. "Do they remember me?" I didn't lie. "They remember being left." She flinched like the words had slapped her. "But they also remember who stayed." Her hands trembled as she placed the book back on the table. "Can I talk to them?" she whispered. I swallowed hard. "That's not up to me anymore. You gave up that right." And with that, she nodded. No drama, no scene, just the quiet realization that some stories are no longer hers to rewrite. That night, after the launch, I waited until the house was quiet. The kids were older now. Teens, pre-teens, one still clinging to childhood but growing fast. I sat them down the next morning. No tension, just calm truth. "Your mother came to the book launch yesterday." Their reactions were mixed. My eldest clenched her jaw but said nothing. One of the boys just looked at the floor. My youngest, who had no memory of her, asked, "Did she want to come home?" I shook my head. No, she just wanted to know if we'd forgive her. Silence stretched across the table like fog. Finally, my daughter, the one who once waited at the door every night for months, looked me straight in the eye. "Did you?" I smiled, not bitterly, not proudly, just with peace. I forgave her a long time ago, but I didn't forget, and neither should you. None of them asked to see her. None of them begged to reconnect, because they understood something deeper than resentment, that our healing didn't need her return. We were whole already, and no apology could take credit for the family we had become. A few weeks later, a white envelope arrived. No return address, but the handwriting was unmistakable. Inside, and there was a folded letter, her final attempt, I assumed. I held it for a moment, standing in the kitchen, sunlight pouring across the counter where I used to make pancakes while bouncing a baby on my hip. The envelope felt heavier than paper should, not because of weight, but because of what it might contain. Regrets, explanations, maybe even a plea. I placed it in the drawer with old warranties and broken pens. Not out of spite, but because I no longer needed her words to make sense of my life. I had already lived every sentence she had skipped, every chapter she had abandoned. My book wasn't written to haunt her. It was written to heal me. I told the truth. Quietly, completely. And if that truth unsettled her, then maybe that was her story to reckon with, not mine. I made peace without answers. And sometimes, that's the most powerful kind of closure than the one you create for yourself. Months passed. Interviews came, podcasts, articles. People started calling me an inspiration, a hero, Dad of the Year. I smiled politely, said thank you, but deep down, I didn't feel heroic. I hadn't climbed a mountain or saved a burning building. I'd just shown up, day after day, in sickness, in tantrums, in math homework, and teenage heartbreak. I'd been the one who bought pads for the first time, taught how to tie a tie, held trembling hands through panic attacks, and stood in the crowd for every school play, clapping the loudest. That's not heroism. That's parenting, real, imperfect, bone-tired love. What people saw now, the book, the talks, the applause, was just the surface. Underneath it all were nights of doubt, silent prayers, and moments when I locked myself in the bathroom just to breathe. But I never walked away. I never disappeared. And somehow that simple decision to stay turned me into something I never expected, a man my children could be proud of. It was my youngest's graduation. He was the last one. My little boy, now taller than me, stepping onto the stage in his cap and gown, scanning the crowd for my face. When he found me, he smiled the same crooked smile he used to make when he lost a tooth. And then, they handed him the mic. I didn't know he'd been chosen to speak. His voice trembled at first, but then it settled. My story isn't about struggle, he began. It's about love that never left. The audience fell silent. My mom left when I was a baby. I don't remember her face, but I remember the man who stayed, who made pancakes in funny shapes, braided my sister's hair, and never missed a soccer game, even after a 12-hour shift. My throat tightened. I know people think heroes wear capes. Mine wore second-hand shoes and smelled like coffee and laundry soap. People started wiping their eyes. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. That moment, hearing my son speak truth without bitterness, was the full circle I never asked for, but deeply needed. He didn't talk about the woman who left. He honored the man who stayed. People often ask me if I'd do it all again, raise 5 kids alone, give up everything, lose sleep, miss out on love, start over from nothing, and my answer is always the same. I didn't lose anything. I became everything I was meant to be. I didn't just raise children. I raised myself. The man I was before she left. He wasn't ready. He didn't know his strength. He didn't know silence could teach or that pain could polish you like stone underwater. I thought she broke me, but she freed me from the illusion that I needed someone else to build a home. My kids and I, we built our own walls brick by brick with laughter, forgiveness, and nights on the floor playing board games with missing pieces. She came to my book launch looking for forgiveness, but I had already given it, not to her, but to myself. I let go of the version of me that waited at the door, and I embraced the man who opened it for 5 little hearts and never let it close. In the end, I didn't write a book about being abandoned. I wrote a book about what happens when you refuse to disappear. Thank you for watching until the end. If you've ever lived through something similar, share your story in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe, because sometimes the loudest impact is made in silence.